Hello, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. So I want to talk about somebody we have talked about previously, and that is Thomas Mahler, who is the director of the Ori games. That's Ori and the Blind Forest, as well as Ori and the Will of the Wisps, as well as his current project, which is No Rest for the Wicked. And we might take a quick look at that before the end of the video. I'll decide when we get there. Just because when I see people do awesome things, I really like to try to help support them. And the best way I think there is to do that is, other than purchase the game myself, is to talk about it to other people and give them the option to discover if they're interested, and thus spread the love the best way I know how. Before we get into it, I would like to remind everybody that there will be a stream tonight. We'll be doing more Dredge. I'm really looking forward to some fish Tetris and some hanging out. So please stop by. That is 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. for those of you who are on the Pacific, and 9 p.m. for those of you who are Eastern. Someday I might do the math for the rest of the world, but not tonight. This all starts with this image. Unfortunately, the person who made this initial tweet has since gone protected, so I can't actually access the rest of the conversation as much as I might like to. However, what they have here is, "Hey, new folk. I'm Ray. I work in the gaming industry in UX, R&D, plus game production. I worked on various software and hardware for Xbox. I now work as an independent media producer and had the privilege of working on the Dota Internationals 2023 and other gaming media projects." She includes a picture of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and I'm not sure what that other one's supposed to be. Thomas says, "I am the director behind both Ori games, and I don't know who you are and how you were affiliated with Ori." Unfortunately, we do not have her response. I do believe there were some screenshots where she mentioned that she'd worked with somebody at Microsoft Studios or for somebody at Microsoft Studios. She is in no way credited on any of the Ori games, which Thomas does go to mention elsewhere in the conversation. However, the line that I want to follow is more in his interaction with, of course, a gaming journalist. Now, I will not be mentioning this gaming journalist's name because this gaming journalist thrives off of the attention. I mentioned way back at the beginning of this, in probably one of my first couple videos, she is literally trying to be the next Anita Sarkeesian. She wants the attention so that she can have a career, because she has no actual talent to make her own career. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about and who this is. But if I don't have to feed into somebody's attention-hungry needs, I can go ahead and not do it. Thomas responded to her where she said that she'd worked with Microsoft under somebody else. I think it was Deborah Henderson or something along those lines. Thomas responds, "That could explain it. I didn't want to cause you any trouble. I just saw you posting that you worked on Ori, and I had no idea who you are. Since you are calling people names online, I thought it was important to inform people that you never actually worked for Moon Studios and that you didn't ever directly engage with anyone at Moon. Always be nice to people, Ray, even those you disagree with." And then, of course, this is where our games journalist friend pops up, where she decides to say, "You're a dickhead." And Thomas responds with possibly one of the best responses ever. "I don't know who you are." That's all he said. Game journalist responds with, "Maybe you forgot." And here she provides a screenshot from an article that says, "Mahler sometimes argued with the veterans that he brought in, and he changed his mind about the decisions they made and would overrule them. Mahler would also forget about agreements and then argue for the opposite to happen, and that impacted the work of multiple people," multiple developers said. Realistically, this is possibly one of the dumbest things I've ever read. When you are at a job, there are many times in which you will have to argue with your employer. Your employer might have an idea that isn't necessarily good. Granted, that really depends on the type of job you're working. Just because you're a veteran in something doesn't mean you're always right. And especially when you're talking about a director of a project, someone whose job it is to make sure the project turns out well and direct the vision, make sure everybody's moving in the same direction, hence the word director. There's going to be times when people clash. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be decisions that are backtracked, overruled, because that's his job. And honestly, I've played both of the Oris. They're fantastic games. I believe he probably did a pretty damn good job, and especially in game design, which can be very much a group effort when done right. You need someone who is holding a firm vision to ensure that not everybody runs off and does their own thing, and you end up with something dumb that doesn't match. That's part of the point of a director. Thomas, however, goes through and makes possibly one of the best responses I've seen since the last time I covered one of his responses to something like this. Mahler says, "Hey," and he uses the journalist's name, "You're apparently a journalist from Kotaku, so I'm guessing you haven't worked in actual game development yet. Let me try to explain the thing you posted about, which I'm guessing was from that hit piece from a few years back. Yes, I am guilty of what's stated in that image, and that's okay, because this is the normal creative process. We brought lots of veterans into Moon because generally great people want to get the opportunity to work on great projects, and that's our goal at Moon. We always set out to create the kind of games we'd love to play ourselves that fills some hole in the market because for some reason these holes haven't been filled yet. And so we are all incredibly passionate about what we do. With great talent comes lots of enthusiasm and passion, which absolutely leads to arguments, because ultimately everyone is working hard on getting their vision into the game. But also, everyone at Moon understands that we're working together as a team. So the point of these arguments is to then try to convince each other why this or that solution would be the best thing for the game we're making, and the best solution ought to win. Most of the times, the beauty behind these arguments is that everyone gets a chance to contribute, and more often than not, the actual solution will be one that ultimately everybody contributed to, because we're dealing with very complex issues all the time, and complex problems often need complex solutions. It is often a chaotic process, but it's controlled chaos. And yes, absolutely every now and then I have to put my foot down and set the direction, because I'm the game director, and ultimately it's my responsibility to ensure that everyone knows where things are heading and that decisions get made. And yes, it also happened that I agreed to a certain decision, play tested some more, and changed the direction after. Again, to me, this is a normal part of the process, since things get clearer and clearer the more stuff gets implemented and the more we play and test. To me, all this is just how creative work happens. It can be painful, but my job, like any good director, is to understand what's going on and make sure the right decisions get made, even if some work might get rendered useless in the process. See here, even Miyamoto is guilty of that. And here Thomas provides a link to Zelda Dungeon for an article called Upending the Tea Table. Here it says, "Upending the tea table" is a phrase used to describe when someone, usually Shigeru Miyamoto, steps in towards the end of a game's development to suddenly and radically change its direction. This often involves starting from scratch, rendering a large amount of work worthless. The phrase originates from a scene in a famous Japanese manga called Star of the Giants, in which an angered father upends the tea table at which the family is eating, spilling dinner on the floor. E.J. Anuma calls it the Miyamoto test, and sees it as a measure of how well the team is aligning to the essence of Zelda. Although it is destructive, Miyamoto always helps to clean it up and make improvements. The team usually welcomes his wisdom. Thomas continues, "A few years back, we hired some folks that didn't really fit our culture, so we had to part ways with them, and then this article happened. Wasn't a great feeling to see some ex-Moon folk talk badly behind our backs, but ultimately it just made clear that these folks shouldn't have worked at Moon in the first place, and I hope they're happier now wherever they landed. I don't know why you're out here cursing out game developers and what your whole deal is, but I hope that gives you some insight into the creative process and its messiness and beauty. I hope you have a nice day. Yours, Dickhead." Which is just possibly the most polite, explanative answer that he could have possibly given. Or realistically, it doesn't matter because she's not going to actually listen to any of it. Games journalists are very much in the pockets of AAA studios. AAA studios are very much in the mindset of a more corporate process, which makes things far more sterile, clean, and emphasizes a type of politeness that you don't necessarily get in a smaller studio where things are grittier, raw, and you have more one-on-one time with the actual people you're talking to. In the previous video I did, I actually spent some time looking at the glass door on Moon Studio. It says there's actually less than 50 employees. That may have changed since I looked, but it's a very small studio. You have people communicating directly with each other. And yes, when you are trying to create something and you are passionate about it, words are going to get thrown, especially if people feel comfortable to actually do it. And that is something that is missing in gaming today, is the ability for developers to be comfortable around one another and just create a game that they love. Because they're given so many checklists and ideas that they have to adhere to, they don't have the time or the ability to put the passion and heart into what goes to making a really good game. You can see the passion and heart in Ori. The story is beautiful. in my opinion, in both. I know there's some people apparently who are upset with the ending of the second one, but I thought it was a very good ending. It made me cry. I try very hard not to cry in general, so the fact that it made me cry is kind of a big thing for me, and it was worth my time to play. I do not regret playing Ori. As a matter of fact, I even got together, this was way back in my early days of streaming, got together with two people and we had a race to get to the end of Ori. I sucked. I didn't even get to the end. Those two fellows beat the pants off me. They were much better at it than I was. I don't think I even got halfway through the game in the time in which we played, but it was fun. And that's what matters. People play that kind of game over and over and over again because it is a fun game. And people play it for the first time because it has a good story. And part of the reason for that is because the people who developed it had passion. And that goes from the director down to every last person working on it. And those are the type of game developers we need more of. That is why I am so passionate about indie devs. Seeing what they're making, seeing how many of them are experimenting and trying new things. Trying to do new things that people haven't done before. I've referenced it in my Dragon Age videos. Aaron Flynn was talking about back in the original BioWare days, where he would not have an idea how to do something because it hadn't been done before. They literally went out and bought cinematography books, and he sat down and figured out how to create that in a video game. They didn't know the rules because there weren't any rules. And sometimes that's when you get a huge amount of creativity. Now we're stifled by so many rules, and people are afraid to break the rules because they don't understand that they don't have to have them. It's funny because when you're talking about creativity, rules can be very important. And then at the same time, you have to know when to break them. That's part of being a true creative, is knowing when the rules help you and when they hinder you. And if they hinder you, you find a way to break them. And if they help you, then you work with them. That is a part of true creativity. And I miss seeing that in gaming. I miss seeing people making something that people thought, oh, you couldn't do that. And now they're not even really hindered by the hardware. The hardware is so accelerating our software that they have very little excuse except that they're afraid and they don't know how. And so now we are waiting for the people who started this to kind of fade away and wait for the people to carry a new torch, to rebirth it all, to go into a new age of gaming. And I do think we're getting very close. This kind of thing often comes with a painful kind of passing of the torch between the two, but we'll get there. That's what I believe. I know for a lot of people, they see the AAAs struggling and getting ready to fall apart, and they think, oh no, gaming's ending. But the fact of the matter is the AAA studios aren't gaming. Yes, some of them may have been there since the conception of gaming. Some may still be after this, but they are not gaming. As long as there are game developers and people willing to play games, gaming will go on. We don't need the AAA studios. We just need people who want to develop games and people who want to play games. And Mahler seems to be both. He is someone who wants to develop and play games. And that's part of why I appreciate him so much. I will link to the previous video I did on him where he actually went in on another games journalist and actually some of the controversies that had come up in his past, because I do think they're worth looking at. One of the great things about this tweet that Mahler has done is that it has created so much discussion, and I love that. You have Ginger Prime here, who says, a masterclass on how to respond to the media grifter. Thank goodness Moon Studios and Thomas are out there and not bending the knee to these bullies. Mr. Sprague Rokotansky says, actually, I think this guy is still dickhead, even if he was the director behind the original games. And Ginger asks, oh, so why is he a dickhead? Do you have examples? Sprague responds, I would say his overall demeanor in the thread. Also, his representation of how he creates a hostile work environment with his employees by debating argumentation of who has the best ideas because of passion. is, well, something I know wouldn't fly with the type of work I've done. Also, his no one asked for his opinion, and it wasn't completely out of pocket to suggest that even if you disagree with someone, that you should be nice enough. What I'm gathering from that, basically he's, rearing his head where he doesn't need to. At least if I were to interview him, based on the way he spoke here, he would not come off great. Some of that doesn't make sense. Okay, and it makes sense. This is the guy who created that stupid Gamers Anonymous thing. Ginger Prime responds, with all due respect, outside your bubble, that's how most things are. You call it hostile, some call it spirited. In the end, products speak for themselves, and maybe we need a little more dickhead in these studios so less people would lose their jobs because they're not heard or afraid to speak up, because people use being offended as some form of virtue and shield from responsibility. Sprague responds one more time, outside my bubble, I've worked in dozens of industries. I know what a hostile workplace looks like, and I've gotten guys like him reprimanded or reassigned for engaging in hostilities. Yelling matches and the marketplace of ideas alpha type A don't have a place in collaborative environments, which is actually bullshit. And for one, nobody said there was screaming matches. Just because people have a spirited debate doesn't mean that they're yelling. Just because people are arguing doesn't mean they're actually yelling. Having passion often leads to strong emotions. And of course, you've got a whole bunch of people pointing out how soy and weak this is. But again, this person started a nonprofit for recovering gamer gators. So that kind of answers itself. Friend of the channel, Artur, responds to this, saying, toxic positivity, no passion allowed. The company is burning, the products are shit, but let's get rid of the passionate leaders who express emotions. A few years later, the revenue stream dries out, so everyone goes online to cry about mass layoffs. It's capitalism, not me, which is absolutely true. And, I probably sound like a broken record when it comes to it. Passion is absolutely the best thing for gaming. Being able to constructively express your passion, your desires, the fact that certain people are trying to create this washed out, sanitized world where people don't ever say anything that in any way harms anybody, it drives me insane. I absolutely cannot stand this whole, oh God, don't offend anybody bullshit that people put on. But this is a video game channel, not a political rant channel, so I'm going to stop myself there. However, this is the exact type of stuff it leads to. It leads to the ruination of all forms of art. Because when you can't express real emotion, which are both good emotions and bad emotions, then you don't have real art. And yes, I do believe gaming is an art form. Gaming is an art form as much as storytelling, as much as movie making. Art is about making people feel and think things. Now, you may not always succeed in making them feel or think exactly what you set out to, but as long as they feel and think something, then you should consider yourself having succeeded, depending on what you're trying to think. That's why activist art sucks so bad, because unless you get the perfect interpretation for what their art was supposed to be, it looks like shit. Then again, it generally just looks like shit anyway, because a lot of it actually involves shit. Moving on. In another post from Artur, where he actually responds to the original post from Mahler, he says, this post is a fantastic insight for every game developer who one day wishes to build a team and make bigger games. Also, our job is to create awesome games, not cater to aggressive activists pretending to be journalists. That part is harder for small indies, as it feels like there are many gatekeepers to please at every step. But we have to push through and focus on delivering great experiences for the players. Make players excited, and word of mouth will be enough. Which is a yes and a no thing. Word of mouth absolutely will help, but sometimes it is so hard to break into that right circle at the right time. There is one of those things that bothers me in life right now is I know there's so much amazing stuff out there. We are in a time where it is easier than ever to create, to get started and do creations. But there's so much amazing stuff that we're not seeing, that we can't find because it's buried under so much shit. And sifting through it takes so much time and effort. And of course, the places that would provide an algorithm of some kind always skew it. There's always some kind of monetary skew that they use to make themselves more money, to benefit their friends or the government. And so I know there's some amazing things out there that we may never get to see. And I wish there was a way to help it. I do to some degree look at this channel as a way to help the small things I find get more light on them. That's why I do occasionally just videos about games I've seen. Now, those videos don't tend to get a lot of views. But, the people who see them, hopefully they'll go and try the games. And we can help build, through a positive feedback function, a healthier gaming market. Another response I found and thought was really good is here from Laura, or Indie Laura SDG. And she says, this thread covers most of what's wrong with the industry today. Great games come from a place of great passion and intense creativity. They have to be forged in a crucible, under pressure, with intense, single-minded pursuit of common goal. Taking an idea all the way demands sacrifice. You have to be willing to lay aside feelings and ego in service of the goal. Somewhere along the way, those things become verboten. Glorified nannies are pushing for game dev that's been sanitized and had all the rough edges buffed off lest anyone get their feelings hurt. What Thomas Mahler is describing should be totally normal. Break eggs to make omelette stuff. But to gotcha journalists and insecure kidults who expect everyone to give them a safe space, it's a reason to cancel, write, expose, and vilify creators. And look where that got us. Stifling conformity and yes-man culture masquerading as sensitivity. Games that are utter shit going through 400 million development cycles only to be canned after less than a month on the market, because at every point in the creative process, no one could speak up in defense of what matters most. The gamers who play the games. Games are a marriage of art and commerce. It's messy making that marriage work. Trying to eliminate the messiness is how we ended up with legions of AAA game devs and a whole consultant class who straight up hate gamers and have no respect for the franchises and characters they're supposed to steward. But this is so absolutely spot on right. The games we loved all came from people who were working hard and pushing their passion forward. They were willing to do things like crunch, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to, because they wanted this game to get out and be the best it possibly could. With the corporatization of gaming, one might even say with the industrialization of gaming, you have an entirely new class of people who come in and see what people did before, but they don't want to work that hard for it. They feel that somebody else already did that work, so they should have an easier job now. Their job should be easy, and because someone else already put in the work to make it seem like a glamorous, well-to-do job, it should just, they should just be able to come in, have their fun, make their little game, and of course everybody's going to buy it because obviously they made it, and that's how this works, right? I make a thing and people just buy it. It doesn't have to cater to those people. It just has to be made. People who don't understand what they're making. People who just want the title and not the work that goes with it. Seeing this stuff actually makes me personally excited. Seeing game devs who are passionate and excited for their games makes me genuinely happy inside. And I'm very much looking forward to getting to the point again where the people that we're talking about making these games are these people. And honestly, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm getting to talk about these people who are passionate about making these games. But I want to be able to talk about their games more than their spats back and forth with some weirdo on Twitter. So speaking of games, here is the Steam page for No Rest for the Wicked. And I will go through really quick and read the about. From Moon Studios, the award-winning developers of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, comes No Rest for the Wicked, a visceral precision action RPG set to reinvent the genre. The year is 841. King Harald is dead. As word of his death echoes throughout the kingdom, the crown passes to his arrogant yet untested son Magnus. Even worse, the pestilence, an unholy plague not seen for 1,000 years, has returned. It sweeps across the land, corrupting everything and everyone it touches. Madrigal Celine, a ruthlessly ambitious figure in the church, sees the pestilence as a chance to prove herself in the eyes of her god. These forces converge on the backwater Isola Sacra, where the rebel group and the provincial government fight for control amid the isle's crumbling ruins. You are a serum, a member of a group of mystical holy warriors imbued with remarkable powers and sworn to defeat the pestilence at any cost. But the task will prove increasingly challenging as you become entangled in the people's plight and the vast political struggle of this downtrodden land. Chaos will pull you in every direction as you seek to cleanse the land of wickedness and shape the kingdom's fate. There is a mature content description. This game may contain content not appropriate for all ages or may not be appropriate for viewing at work, and it may include blood and gore, intense violence, strong language, and nudity. I think we'll go ahead and take a quick look at the reveal trailer.
My sister fair, she sings like morning. My sister true, she laughs like noon. My sister grace, she drowned this evening, but still visits by the light of the moon. We prayed for summer, we prayed for fall, to prosper, to love, to...
Okay. The music's gorgeous. And so far, I'm really happy with the visuals.
forgive. And our prayers came back like a little lost lamb, dying so that we may live. We prayed for summer, we prayed for fall, for harvest, for mercy, for rain. And our prayers came back like a voice in the dark, unanswered, but not quite the same.
Okay. Not gonna lie, I think it looks really good, and I'm kind of sad with myself that I haven't bought it yet. Because I said I was gonna buy it before, but oh, you know how life goes. It's definitely on my wish list and will be something that I look into soon, I hope, because I do think it looks really good, and honestly, that music's got me all stirred up. All right, my friends, let me know what you think down in the comments. I would love to hear if you agree with me, if there's something here that you disagree with. Do you think that it sounds like the work environment that Thomas Mahler set up was aggressive, or do you think it sounds just like a passionate work group? Do you think he was wrong to confront that young lady about whether or not she had actually worked on Ori? I've seen people who felt that he should have DM'd her as opposed to have called her out in public. Personally, I think if you're going to make a statement that implies you worked somewhere in public, you shouldn't be surprised when you are called on it in public. But I mean, you know, that's just me. Either way, I will be streaming it tonight, like I said, at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.